Justin Baldoni is firing back. After Blake Lively's bombshell allegations made headlines, the It Ends With Us star and director is now suing the New York Times in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit accusing the outlet of defamation and mishandling the reporting of his side of the story. His lawsuit paints a drastically different picture than Lively's claims, and we're going to break it all down for you right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Well, in an explosive turn of events, actor and director Justin Baldoni has filed a defamation lawsuit against the New York Times for a reportedly staggering $250 million. This lawsuit, which was officially filed on New Year's Eve, comes in the wake of a bombshell report by the newspaper that revealed allegations from Baldoni's It Ends With Us co-star, Blake Lively. This is something we've talked about extensively here on Sidebar. And her allegations primarily centered around accusations of sexual harassment, invasion of privacy, retaliation, and this has sparked a bitter legal battle between the two Hollywood stars. And we're going to dive into Baldoni's claims, but before we do that, we have to get you kind of caught up to speed on how we got here. So Blake Lively, she first went public with allegations against Justin Baldoni on December 20th. That is when she filed a complaint with the California Civil Rights Department. And in documents that were reviewed by the New York Times, she accused Baldoni, his production company Wayfarer Studios, and others of retaliating against her. Lively claimed that she had raised concerns about a hostile work environment during the production of the movie It Ends With Us. This is a romantic drama that's based on the hit novel by Colleen Hoover. According to Lively, Baldoni repeatedly invaded her personal space, entered her makeup trailer uninvited while she was undressing or breastfeeding her newborn. She also claimed that Baldoni's behavior contributed to a toxic atmosphere on set, and that nearly derailed the whole production. Her legal team claimed that Baldoni showed a shocking lack of boundaries, and even went so far as to suggest that Baldoni then orchestrated a smear campaign against her following her speaking up and trying to address the issues on set. Hey, so we're going to keep on following this Baldoni story for you, and with that in mind, I have to thank our sponsor, Upside, because their support helps make episodes like this possible. Now, Upside is great. It is a free app that gets cash back when you buy daily essentials like gas, groceries, food. This is real cash back. It's money that appears in your Upside app that you transfer right into your bank account. So look here, I used Upside to find a gas station near me. I claimed an offer on Upside, paid with my credit card at the pump, followed the steps on the app, and I got cash back. It is super simple. You can use Upside at all different kinds of places, restaurants, convenience stores. So to find out how much you could earn, you click the link in the description to download Upside, or you scan the QR code on screen, and make sure to use our promo code SIDEBAR because you get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Lively would later file a lawsuit against Baldoni, Wayfarer, his crisis manager, and a former employee of Baldoni's publicist. But just one day after the initial complaint was filed with the state board on December 21st, the New York Times published an article, and the article was called "We Can Bury Anyone Inside a Hollywood Smear Machine." And this is where the outlet published text messages for the world to see from this complaint that detailed the alleged smear campaign against Blake Lively. And these messages are so important. They are central to this dispute because they suggest that there is this heated battle over public relations tactics and media coverage during the film's production and after. And the real central claim here is that the New York Times had all of these messages. And we're going to get more into the specifics of the text when we dive into Baldoni's lawsuit in just a moment. But they had all of it. And they were very careful in what they actually showed and what they didn't. That's according to Baldoni. But to give you an example, part of that reporting from the New York Times, it highlighted a text exchange between Jennifer Abel, this is the former Publicis employee, to Melissa Nathan, this is a crisis manager, and they were all working with Baldoni. And this message read, "He wants to feel like she can be buried," to which Nathan allegedly responded, "You know we can bury anyone." So when we first reported this, you could say, wow, that looks really problematic for Justin Baldoni and his team, right? You could see how Blake Lively is thinking that there was a smear campaign, retaliation against her for speaking up what happened on the set. But after the article was published, Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, responded to the allegations in a statement that was published by the New York Times. And his statement reads in part, "It is shameful that Ms. Lively and her representatives would make such serious and categorically false accusations against Mr. Baldoni, Wayfarer Studios, and its representatives as yet another desperate attempt to fix her negative reputation, which was garnered during her own remarks and actions during the campaign for the film." And as for the role of the crisis manager, Friedman said, "Wayfarer Studios made the decision to proactively hire a crisis manager due to the multiple demands and threats made by Miss Lively during production, which included her threatening to not show up to set, threatening not to promote the film, ultimately leading to its demise during release if her demands were not met." And Friedman specifically addressed the New York Times reporting, saying, "What is pointedly missing from the cherry-picked correspondence is the evidence that there were no proactive measures taken with media or otherwise, just internal scenario planning and private correspondence to strategize, which is standard operating procedure with public relations professionals." Now, Lively's lawsuit was officially filed on December 31st. This is the same day that Baldoni's legal team filed this, again, reportedly $250 million defamation lawsuit against the New York Times, accusing it of publishing a misleading report based on what he says is selective and manipulative evidence. And so before we go any further, there's a quick primer here on defamation law. So when you are talking about a public figure like Justin Baldoni, and not just a private citizen, Baldoni needs to prove for defamation that this was a false statement or series of false statements that were published with actual malice, meaning the New York Times knew the statement or statements were fake, were false, or they acted with reckless disregard for the truth. Like they didn't even bother to do the proper due diligence to make sure the statements were true. Now that is a tough burden. That is a high legal standard, sometimes very tough to win those kinds of cases. Just keep that in mind. Now, according to his official complaint, which was obtained by Law&Crime, Baldoni criticizes the New York Times reporting for not painting a complete picture of the facts, saying, "The article's central thesis, encapsulated in a defamatory headline designed to immediately mislead the reader, is that plaintiffs orchestrated a retaliatory public relations campaign against Lively for speaking out about sexual harassment, a premise that is categorically false and easily disproven. If the Times truly reviewed the thousands of private communications it claimed to have obtained, its reporters would have seen incontrovertible evidence that it was Lively, not plaintiffs, who engaged in a calculated smear campaign. The complete communications demonstrate beyond question that plaintiffs had no intention of destroying or burying Lively through aggressive tactics. On the contrary, Baldoni consistently expressed his desire to avoid harming Lively and protect the film, but also recognized the legitimate need for public relations protection in light of Lively's false and damaging claims." Now, in the lawsuit, Mr. Baldoni fires back at some of the key allegations that are made against him, and we're going to take you through each one of these. Now, we mentioned earlier how critical these text messages are to this case. Well, right at the beginning of Baldoni's lawsuit are embedded messages that are dated from August 19th, where Baldoni appears to express concern about being painted to look like he was trying to take down Lively. Those texts read, "How can we say somehow that we are not doing any of this? It looks like we are trying to take her down." And another one reads, "Things I'm more worried about is that we are planning stories which is not true, obviously." Now, one key exchange that Baldoni is refuting is one that appears in the New York Times article, is where Baldoni and his publicist seem to be discussing a Daily Mail article that speculated whether Lively's career might be in trouble. So that article from August 16th was titled in part, "Is Blake Lively Set to be Canceled?" Now, in the article from the New York Times, that text exchange is not embedded. It was just typed out. And right before that exchange, the Times wrote, "By mid-August, the team was reveling in the damage to Miss Lively's image." Now, the text exchange in the New York Times piece that it printed out simply reads, "Wow, you really outdid yourself with this piece." This is what Miss Abel wrote to Miss Nathan. And Miss Nathan responded, "That's why you hired me, right? I'm the best." But in Baldoni's lawsuit, he claims the context of this conversation was mischaracterized, that it was actually sarcastic in nature. Baldoni's lawsuit shows the apparent actual text exchange between these two women that appears to have occurred right before this exchange. And this is where Nathan seems to deny any connection to the article after first learning about it. The New York Times, though, they didn't print that exchange. The lawsuit says, specifically, in the immediately preceding text exchange on August 16th, Nathan forwarded a screenshot of a message from a reporter informing her for the first time of the Daily Mail article. In response, Nathan wrote, "Damn, this is not fair because it's also not me," followed by, "Everything now looks like it's me," conclusively refuting her involvement in the creation or dissemination of the article. And as for that exchange that the New York Times did print, the lawsuit accuses it of omitting a key detail. In fact, omitting a key emoji that, according to Baldoni's team, changes the whole meaning and context of this conversation. The lawsuit says, after Nathan forwarded a screenshot of the article link, Abel responded with, "You really outdid yourself with this piece. Upside down smiley face emoji," adding an upside down smiley face emoji to indicate the sarcastic nature of her message. The emoji is commonly used to convey irony, sarcasm, joking, or a sense of goofiness or silliness. So this alleged mischaracterization, according to the lawsuit, would lead readers to believe that this was all part of a purported smear campaign against Blake Lively. Baldoni says that is not what happened here. Quote, "When read in full, the exchange reveals Nathan and Abel engaging in facetious juvenile banter, not conspiring against Lively. The Times relied on Lively's CRD complaint and, based solely on this exchange, intentionally duped readers into believing that Baldoni orchestrated a smear campaign purportedly using Nathan and Abel as his accomplices. Indeed, the Times, like Lively, misrepresented these communications to support its salacious and unfounded smear campaign narrative." Now, a central argument in this lawsuit is that Justin Baldoni actually didn't launch a campaign to smear Blake Lively. Rather, he claims it was Lively herself who was to blame. It was Lively's own actions, according to him, that led to negative press. And some of that even came from the New York Times. The lawsuit says even the Times itself acknowledged Lively's public missteps in an August 17, 2024 article titled, "It Ends With Us, the Press Tour Drama Explained." In it, reporter Savannah Gonzalez observed, Lively's promotion of the movie has included a push for her new hair care line, discussion of the clothes in the movie, and response to questions about abuse, which have been criticized as shallow and tone-deaf. And in furtherance of that argument that Lively essentially buried herself, the suit includes a social media post with a picture of Lively on the It Ends With Us Instagram page with a caption that reads, "Grab your friends, wear your florals." And Lively received backlash for that post, but Baldoni asserts that he didn't plan the backlash, he didn't contribute to it, and this is all because the movie is about dark themes of domestic violence. That again, this was tone-deaf messages on the part of Blake Lively. She wrote this stuff, she did this stuff. Now, Lively, I would imagine, would argue, as she did in her complaint, that she promoted the movie this way purposely because there was an agreed-upon marketing strategy to market and promote the film as being hopeful and empowering and steering away from the sadder, darker elements of domestic violence in the film. But going back to that post and adding to Baldoni's defense, the lawsuit shows that that post circulated in a group chat called Tag Team, which appears to be a group chat created by Baldoni's team with Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel included. And there are communications within this group where members appear to deny spreading any of the negativity. The names are redacted, so we don't know who's saying what, but they read, "We didn't tell Jed to go after the idea that her promo was inappropriate. That happened organically." And underneath that specific post, texts read, like, "Come on, we had nothing to do with that." And on the next page of the lawsuit, more negative press attention on Blake Lively was shared within this group text. And there is a text allegedly coming from Melissa Nathan that shows a Daily Mail article titled "Unearth Blake Lively Interview, Show Her Using Slur for Trans People." And underneath, Nathan appears to say, "This just ran. Obviously, none of us knew about this either. But once the media goes in, they go in. She has handed it to them all on a plate." Now, a little side note here. There is an argument to be made that even if Baldoni doesn't win his defamation case, he could be winning on the PR front. This lawsuit, the reporting on this lawsuit, the publication of those alleged messages, these text messages, it is giving people who are following this drama another side to the story. Baldoni may be trying to win back public favor that he may have lost in the last few weeks in the wake of all of these Blake Lively allegations. So you can see why he's not only fighting a legal battle, he's also fighting a PR battle. But I do want to address another allegation that Baldoni is fighting in his lawsuit. And that is Blake Lively's claims that Baldoni repeatedly invaded her privacy and made her uncomfortable while on the set. So the New York Times reported in their article that Wayfair CEO Jamie Heath showed Lively a video of his wife naked. And in Lively's complaint, she says that she thought the video was pornographic. Baldoni's lawsuit, however, appears to provide more context as to what that video was, saying the video in question was a non-pornographic recording of Heath's wife and baby during a home birth, a deeply personal one with no sexual overtone. The video was shown to Lively as part of a creative discussion in preparation for a birthing scene in the film. Now, another allegation that Baldoni is firing back on is the claim that was reported by the New York Times that he entered Lively's trailer uninvited at times while she was breastfeeding and undressed. While Baldoni, in his lawsuit, provides a screenshot of a text message exchange from June 3rd, 2023, where it appears that Blake Lively is allegedly inviting Baldoni into her trailer while she was breastfeeding. The text reads, "I'm just pumping in my trailer if you want to work out our lines," to which Baldoni allegedly responds, "Copy, eating with crew, and we'll head that way." Now, Baldoni's legal team contends that this proves she had, at least on one occasion, invited him into her personal space, which challenges the accusation that she was always subjected to unwanted invasions of her privacy. Now, another claim that Lively made that is mentioned in the New York Times article is that Baldoni improvised unwanted kissing scenes and discussed his sex life on set. Again, goes into that sexual harassment claim. And the article also says that Lively complained about these alleged violations of boundaries and that Wayfair agreed to provide an intimacy coordinator for safety. What Baldoni says, though, is that the New York Times, they failed to mention in their reporting that Lively didn't want to meet with the intimacy coordinator to plan out these scenes. According to the lawsuit, Baldoni, in turn, was forced to meet with the intimacy coordinator alone and relay any suggestions to Lively separately. As part of those creative discussions, Baldoni and Lively sought to personalize and develop their characters and, in doing so, engaged in conversation about their individual experiences. The Times, taking Lively's CRD complaint as true, characterizes this discussion as an inappropriate attempt by Baldoni to talk about his sex life. It was not. And there's a text message in the lawsuit which provides one specific instance where Lively appears to reject meeting with this intimacy coordinator ahead of time. Now, Baldoni is also making other serious accusations against Blake Lively, suggesting that she attempted to take control of the film in ways that expanded beyond her role as an actor, and this included trying to take over wardrobe, rewrite scenes, and even edit her own version of the film. Now, in the New York Times article, there is a mention made of a document that was sent to Baldoni on August 2nd from Alyssa Nathan. And there's a talking point in there about Lively's alleged use of an imbalance of power to take control of the film. Now, the argument could be that this was apparently mentioned to suggest that Baldoni was looking to bury Lively, or as a way that he could bury her. And this is evidenced by the following lines in the reporting where Jennifer Abel is quoted as saying to Melissa Nathan, "He wants to feel like she can be buried," to which Melissa Nathan's response is quoted as, "Of course." What is not mentioned, according to Baldoni, is his side of the story in this. And his side of the story is that Blake Lively really did try to take control of the film. And even worse, that she weaponized her claims of his behavior against him. Claims, again, which he of course says are untrue. So one aspect of the film that Baldoni accuses Lively of trying to control is her character's wardrobe. Baldoni says in his suit that Lively went so far as to dress herself for scenes, going against the advice of the costume designer. He points to an instance where paparazzi photos of Lively and her costume choices that she selected were deemed unflattering by Sony. Baldoni says he tried to inform Lively of the studio's concerns, but she instead interpreted that, his comments, as being inappropriate. Baldoni says in his suit, Lively later leveraged this conversation in support of her allegations of harassment, alleging that Baldoni made inappropriate comments on her appearance. In reality, Baldoni was relaying the distributor's concerns and the widespread social media criticism regarding the wardrobe's failure to meet audience expectations, a sentiment that Baldoni shared. Baldoni also accuses Lively of trying to control the script, which he says she tried to change. Now, the New York Times did report that there was this instance where Blake Lively said in an interview that her husband, actor Ryan Reynolds, helped to rewrite a scene despite having no role in the film. The claim is corroborated in this lawsuit, which says, during a red carpet interview at the New York City celebrity premiere of the film, Lively stated, "The iconic rooftop scene, my husband actually wrote it. Nobody knows that, but you now." This was also the first time plaintiffs learned that Reynolds, who had no formal role in the film's production, made unauthorized changes to the script in secret. Okay, now moving on from this, we've previously discussed on Sidebar something else, this pivotal meeting that Blake Lively describes in her complaint. And it was at this meeting where she allegedly presented Baldoni with a 30-point list of grievances. According to Lively, this list outlined various complaints about what she called a hostile work environment on set. She claims that Baldoni had to agree to these demands in order for filming to continue. This meeting is mentioned in the New York Times article. The outlet even reported on the alleged agreement that Baldoni's team made with Blake Lively. Their article reads, "In agreeing to the terms that Ms. Lively sought, Wayfair acknowledged that although our perspective differs in many aspects, ensuring a safe environment for all is paramount." But Baldoni's lawsuit asserts this never happened. He says this was not the purpose of this meeting and that he had no idea that Blake Lively was even going to bring up grievances. Baldoni says he was meeting with Lively to discuss plans for resuming filming after a strike, and that Lively decided to, quote, blindside him with her complaints. And as for that 30-point list, Baldoni says he was never presented with that document, not at that meeting or any meeting. And as for what Baldoni does say occurred at that meeting, he says there was a heated encounter with Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds. According to the lawsuit, Baldoni says Reynolds confronted him and accused him of fat-shaming Lively. This was in reference, according to Baldoni, to an instance where he did ask about Lively's weight during filming, but he says it was in good faith. According to the lawsuit, Baldoni, while training for a physically demanding scene in which his character Ryle would lift Lily, this is Blake Lively's character, he asked his trainer, who was introduced to him by Lively and oversaw his training for the film, how much Lively weighed. Baldoni, who suffers from back issues and has multiple bulging discs, made the inquiry to ensure he could safely perform the lift without injury. Unfortunately, the trainer relayed this information to Lively, who then informed Reynolds. And Baldoni asserts that Reynolds interpreted that inquiry as fat shaming. Now you're seeing two different perspectives there. And Baldoni also says, and this is where another aspect of alleged control comes in, that Lively had threatened to quit the production altogether, gave him an ultimatum to do things the way she wanted or find somebody else. And Baldoni says he conceded to her demands out of fear that she would go public with the fat-shaming allegation. But now you fast forward to the post-production process of the movie, where Baldoni says that Blake Lively tried to control the editing of the film by taking measures as drastic as firing his entire team and even creating her own cut of the film. According to the lawsuit, eventually, Lively fired the film's editors, replacing them with her own choice, specifically an editor often used by Reynolds. She also fired the film's award-winning composer, replacing him with composers from Reynolds' recent project. Against repeated objections, Lively created her own cut of the film at Wayfair Sony's expense. Sony later informed Wayfair that Lively would not promote the film unless her demands were met. Now, this is where things get even more crazy, because Baldoni says that the final cut of the film, the one that landed in theaters, that's available on Netflix, the one that you can watch right now, that is not even his cut of the film. It's apparently Lively's. According to the lawsuit, Lively had threatened to withhold promoting the film if her cut was not used. So Wayfair and Sony, they agreed to test both her cut and Baldoni's cut with audiences, and under the impression that if Baldoni's cut scored higher, that's the cut that would be used. So according to the lawsuit, unsurprisingly, despite Baldoni's cut scoring significantly higher with audiences in the film's target demographic, Lively reneged on her promise. She insisted that her cut be the version released to the public, even going so far as to claim that the author of the book would also refuse to promote the film if Lively's version was not chosen. Under immense pressure, Sony and Wayfair once again conceded. So with all of this going on, Baldoni says that his team retained crisis manager Melissa Nathan ahead of the film's premiere. And contrary to Lively's claims that Baldoni had hired her to smear Lively, Baldoni says Nathan was hired to protect him. According to his lawsuit, in direct response to Lively's oppressive tactics as described herein, Wayfair and Baldoni retained Nathan and Tag as a protective measure ahead of the film's premiere. Contrary to the Times portrayal, Tag's engagement focused exclusively on defensive strategy and fact verification, though, as is standard industry practice, Tag prepared for worst-case scenarios based on Lively and Reynolds' prior behavior. No aggressive tactics, example astroturfing, were ever employed. Tag maintained this defensive position throughout its engagement, verifying facts and correcting misinformation without retaliation, a strategy endorsed by Baldoni and Wayfair in an effort to reprioritize the film's significant social message. And astroturfing, by the way, is when an organization like a PR firm makes it look like there's grassroots support for a story when it's actually been planted or planned by the marketing team using things like social media accounts, reviews, testimonials. It's try to sway public opinion about something. So going back to the premiere, the Times reported in their article that speculation of a rift between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni emerged when the two were photographed separately at the premiere. Baldoni says their separation was all because of Blake Lively. His lawsuit says he and the Wayfair team were segregated from the main cast and that Baldoni's time on the red carpet was even cut short. He also says that he was escorted into a separate theater. And also, he says he has the receipts. He says this is backed up by text messages that are embedded in the lawsuit. Those texts come from a group chat labeled Dream Team, where two editors are allegedly discussing the film with Baldoni. And this is where Baldoni allegedly says, "Long story, but we won't be in the same room. I was asked to not even come to the premiere. I can figure it out." Another text, apparently from Baldoni, reads, "I'm going to be there. That's just different timing and holding areas and theaters and all things you can imagine. It's still our film." To which an editor responds, "It would be very hard for me to sit and watch the final film for the first time at the premiere." So the bottom line is, nonetheless, even with all this information, Baldoni is alleging and arguing that the New York Times still decided to publish their article, which he argues was a one-sided, unsubstantiated story on behalf of Blake Lively, and that the outlet got it dramatically wrong. And as a result of that, Baldoni is suing the newspaper for libel. This is a form of defamation, claiming that the outlet cherry-picked communications to paint a narrative that Baldoni was motivated to harm Lively. He's also suing for false light invasion of privacy, alleging the outlet published false statements maliciously and with conscious disregard of Baldoni's rights. He's suing for promissory fraud, accusing the outlet of not giving him an appropriate amount of time to respond to Lively's complaint. Baldoni's team says that the Times gave them until noon on December 21st to publish the article after reaching out a day earlier at around 9:45 p.m., a window his team says was not adequate enough for a proper response. But then, his team alleges, the Times ended up releasing their article 2 hours before their proposed deadline, cutting off any further ability for Justin Baldoni to issue a response. And lastly, he's suing for breach of implied in fact contract, which pertains to the claim that the Times dropped the article earlier than they initially said that they would. As for what Baldoni is seeking, he's looking for all statutory penalties authorized by law, punitive and or exemplary damages in an amount to sufficiently punish the New York Times for what he says is wrongful conduct alleged in the lawsuit, liquidated damages, the costs of bringing forth this lawsuit, attorney's fees as permitted by law or contract, prejudgment interest, and any other relief that is ordered by the court. Now, the New York Times issued a response to this lawsuit, saying, "We plan to vigorously defend against the lawsuit. The role of an independent news organization is to follow the facts where they lead. Our story was meticulously and responsibly reported. It was based on a review of thousands of pages of original documents, including text messages and emails that we quote accurately and at length in the article." And Lively's team even issued a statement on this lawsuit, saying, "Nothing in this lawsuit changes anything about the claims advanced in Miss Lively's California Civil Rights Department complaint. While we will not litigate this matter in the press, we do encourage people to read Miss Lively's complaint in its entirety. We look forward to addressing each and every one of Wayfair's allegations in court." So again, could be tough to prove defamation. It's more than just allegedly sloppy reporting. A lot of this could come down to what texts were included and what were not included. What was that decision for the New York Times to do that? Was it an editorial decision, especially in terms of keeping the article to a certain length? We couldn't include everything. We couldn't include all the communications. versus, what Baldoni says, cherry-picking text to create a certain narrative. And there will also be quite the back and forth about how much time Baldoni and his team were given to respond. But again, this may just be a win for him. Just filing this response, filing this complaint, putting forward his own text message conversations, as of right now, to create a different version of events could be a winning strategy, even if the legal suit doesn't go anywhere. But we'll see. He's telling his side of what's going on, again, to emphasize that it was Blake Lively who did a lot of this to herself. It was Blake Lively to blame, not him. And I will tell you one thing, I am sure that this is not ending here. We will continue to bring you the updates on this high-stakes Hollywood drama as it continues to unfold. But in the meantime, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.